Well, good evening, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones, and man, do we have a fascinating show for you guys tonight. I do have Mr. Jimmy Paine and Miesha Johnston here in the studio tonight, and we're going to be getting into the Texas Chainsaw family tonight. And actually, we're going to be talking probably a lot more about cattle mutilations, MIBs, presidential models, and black ops that happened back in that time frame, and then we're going to get into the cannibals out there out west in Texas. Okay, so I know this is not a cryptid show tonight, and it's also not even a really a remote viewing show tonight. I know this is our remote viewing show night tonight. I have posted in my Patreon, though, by the way, a target that involves a cattle mutilation case. And so for all of my Patreon members, you guys go check out the Patreon right now or whenever you get a chance, and have all the pictures and stuff we're going to show tonight. The entire presentation is on my Patreon. If you guys want to go over there and follow along with what we're talking about tonight, and in that cattle mutilation out of Kansas back in the 1970s is actually in my Patreon. So go have fun, y'all. Go check it out. And thank you to all my Patreon members. You guys are the best. I do appreciate every one of y'all. Okay. But of course, this is going to be very interesting. I know that, like I said, this is not normally what we talk about with these. It's a little scary, a little gory, watching those movies. But you know what? There's always a little bit of disclosure, or a lot of disclosure, in a lot of these movies, even the ones that are hard to watch for some of us. And of course, Jimmy Paine is going to take us down the rabbit hole tonight. And Miesha Johnston is also here with us to accompany us. And so you guys go get the popcorn. We've got a lot to discuss tonight. And like I said, of course, if you'd like to follow along with all the data for that one target and for all of the presentation, basically, y'all go over to my Patreon and check that out. That's patreon.com/the Cryptid Huntress. And of course, you guys can find me over on my website. That's thecryptidhuntress.com. And thank you guys for all of your support. It really does mean the world to me. Also, I have a Etsy. It's called War Woman Goods. If you guys would like to check out the goods over there. And of course, on my website, you guys can find my calendar of events. I will be at the Western North Carolina Comic-Con. It's a Bigfoot Comic-Con. That is February the 21st. And we got the Georgia Bigfoot Conference next month. But that's all on my website. So y'all go check that out. Okay? All right. Well, let's get to it, y'all. Let's get to it. Because we're talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre tonight. Okay, so let me give y'all a little bit of background before I bring up Jimmy and Miesha tonight. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre horror franchise, in that the cannibalistic spree unaliver, as we have to say on YouTube, Leatherface and his deranged family terrorize unsuspecting trespassers and visitors in a desolate Texas countryside, pretty much having their victims for dinner, if you know what I mean. The original film was marketed as being based on true events, to attract a wider audience, to act as a subtle commentary with the era's political climate. The character of Leatherface and minor story details were reportedly inspired by the crimes of Ed Gein. Now, that's something that's been established for a long time, but the plot is stated as being fictional. But was it really? Was a little bit of this true? All right. Well, after that movie came out, of course, recently they had another release of a movie called the Texas the Texas Slaughter Family, actually. And so in this film, a gentleman named Joe, who you're going to meet Joe in just a few minutes, y'all. Okay. But a woman named Dolly Renae and her new friend Joe set off on a road trip through rural Texas as depicted in the Texas Slaughter Family movie. This was just released in 2024 recently. When their car breaks down, they wander through the back roads hoping to find help, but instead they stumble across an eerie country homestead, not having any clue of what kind of horrors are waiting for them. Dolly and Joe must fight to escape the clutches of the chainsaw-wielding maniac and the gruesome legacy of the Texas Slaughter Family. Now, could this have been based on a true story, not just the Ed Gein background? Well, sources say yes, and I have that source here tonight. Former MIB agent Jimmy Paine breaks down his role in the story behind the Texas Slaughter Family. He and Miesha Johnston are joining me tonight to break down the truth behind the Cannibal family of rural Texas, from cattle mutilations and military black ops to presidential models and Navy lasers. This show is full disclosure tonight. Super soldier agent Jimmy Paine, aka Dallas, was in the secret space program from 1959 until 1996. During this time, he was a shuttlecraft pilot for the Tall Whites at Area 51 and participated in time travel missions with the Montauk Boys at Camp Hero. He also recalls working for the Wayland Corporation, where he encountered a xenomorph, which the movie Aliens was based off of. He was stationed on Mars, Titan, and the Moon. On Mars, he saw the broken statue of a giant face of a humanoid on a mission back in 1974 along with Duncan O'Finnean. He remembers seeing Tommyknockers in the caves on Mars, which is, I am really interested in that. We need to talk to Jimmy about that, actually. And he saw muscular type of grays. And on Titan, he was stationed at a massive underground base. He was tasked with fighting a monster they called It, which looked like Junior, the Montauk monster, a type of Bigfoot that would gain strength by attacking it. All right, so he's also seen the Mona Lisa. We've actually done some remote viewing on that with that spacecraft and Mona Lisa, the EBE, that's on the backside of the moon in that crash ship in a crater. Miesha Johnston is a second-generation ET experiencer, MyLab, and MK Ultra survivor. In addition, she's a certified hypnotherapist and specializes in trauma recovery, ADD, ADHD hypnosis, and past life regression. She facilitates virtual support groups for ET experiences, MyLab, and MK Ultra survivors on the virtual internet through Zoom chat twice a week. She's a director of UFO Group of Las Vegas and facilitates 2 monthly support groups at her residence. You guys can find her at starseedawakening.org. So you guys, please help me welcome to the show tonight my good buddy, Mr. former MIB agent, Jimmy Paine. And we also have Miss Miesha Johnston here with us as well. Hey, y'all. Hey, Miesha.
Hi. Nice to be here.
It's so good to see you. Thank you. Welcome to the Cryptid Hunters channel.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Jimmy, welcome, Jimmy, Mr. MIB himself.
Welcome back. I'm so glad to be here tonight with both of y'all. Wonderful ladies.
Well, thank you. It's a treat. I'm so excited. Now, Jimmy, you've been here before. We've had some wonderful shows together. And this is the first time we've been able to hang out with Miss Miesha Johnston tonight on the channel. And it is an honor to have you both here on my channel tonight. It's an honor. Now, Miesha, I got to tell you, it was interesting because we had to watch. I say we had to watch because it was rough watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or the what is it, the Texas Slaughter Family movies together. How did you feel about that?
Hated it. It was very triggering because there were some horrific things that have happened to me, not per se like that, but of that kind of torture type of nature. And when she was tied up, it was really, really very, very triggering for me.
Oh gosh, I am so sorry.
As the monarch. Oh, that's okay. You feel notice. You probably noticed I was doing this a lot.
I was doing that too, Miesha. I'm not into the gory stuff,
No,
the scary stuff, but with the, I hate to bring this up, but like we've had a lot of like a disclosure dump this week on some very difficult files that were released this past week, and people are seeing, yes, people are talking that dare I say the Epstein files, and that stuff, and so it's been a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people who were not familiar with that, and so tonight we're not trying to traumatize the audience tonight, y'all, okay, but this is just what this is something that potentially has really happened, right, Jimmy? Now we're looking into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I want to tell the audience that we're actually going to be talking probably more about cattle mutilations and things like that tonight, if I'm not mistaken, right, Jimmy? You're muted.
We're going to be talking about a lot of wild stuff tonight. I'm going to be doing a lot of jumping around, and I think everyone's going to come out a winner tonight. People are going to pick up a lot of information tonight.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Jimmy, this was your topic tonight, and I appreciate you coming to talk to us about this. This is, like I told the audience, this is full disclosure tonight. Full disclosure. Now, I never would have thought there would be full disclosure coming out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not ever. But apparently there is. Now, do you want to start the conversation off, Jimmy, tonight, and kind of get into the history before the Texas Chainsaw Massacre happened? And if this is a real story, like, tell us about it.
Okay. I'm going to first start off tonight stating that we don't use our real names, and the names that are in the films are fictitious. But the truth is going to come out tonight about Leatherface. I'm going to go back maybe about 53 years ago. Now, I do not have the X file in front of me, so we're going to go by the movies that have been put out there. The movies are not documentaries, okay? When you get an X file, it's there's parts of it that's blacked out anytime you get a declassified document. And what they do, they hire writers to fill in the blank spaces. Now, years ago, they just got writers off the street, but a real good movie producer will hire a remote viewer to fill in those blanks. So, what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to start off telling how I fit into this. Now, in about around the timeline 1973, I'm leaving Vietnam. See, I'm in and out. I'll spend maybe 30 days in Vietnam, and then I go back to Camp Hero up in New York, and I may spend 2 weeks at Camp Hero, and then I bounce over to Monica, Pennsylvania, at the ARCO facility. ARCO stands for Advanced Research Centralized Office. We've done a show on that. Me and James Rink has. You may recall it as Night of the Living Dead or Return of the Living Dead. the unneedy medical warehouse where split dogs are at. And then I would spend 2 weeks there at the unneedy medical warehouse. And I would go to like Nellis Air Force Base, spend 2 weeks, or I may go to Holloman Air Force Base, spend 2 weeks there, or maybe go up to Creech Air Force Base. So I bounce around a lot. But tonight, we're gonna start off that I have come back from Vietnam and I've gone to the ARCO facility. Now, when Captain Joseph Mengele was in charge of the ARCO facility in Monica, Pennsylvania, he would work late at night, and he didn't have a family, so his students was his family. But he would come in late at night, and he would go to his desk, and he would work at his desk, and when he got tired late at night, he would leave his light on, and because to see his way to the door, and then in the morning when I would arrive, I would open up the warehouse, go in, and go to his office and cut the night light off. This was a habit that we had down. And but during the one morning when I went in there to cut off Captain Mengele's night light over his desk, there was a file, a classified file that was left open on his desk. Now, there had been a medical emergency during the night, and things got turned around a little bit. He was unable to close the medical file. And anytime that you come upon classified information, you're not supposed to read it. Okay? But because there was a diagram, it was a very well laid out diagram to a device that he was working on. So I went ahead and closed the file up, and I secured the file, put it back into the safe, where it could be secured, and I notified the proper. I went through the proper channels to notify that I had come into contact with classified information. Now, that's the law. You're not supposed to read a classified document unless you're being briefed on that document. So I follow procedure. But I was told when my 2 weeks was up that I was going to go to Nellis Air Force Base, and I would be, going into a black ops experiment, a black ops testing site. So I went to Nellis Air Force Base. I was drove out in the desert, and I was briefed on a classified weapon we were working on. Now, I'm going to describe this weapon tonight. It's been declassified, but I'm going to go about it, in the way that I found out about it. I was brought out, I got in a pickup truck with another MIB, and we drove out into the desert. We have a 24-foot aluminum extension ladder in the back of the truck. And when we pulled up, there's this big machine. Now, this machine was sitting on a concrete block. The concrete block was 10 feet by 10 feet, and it went up to about your chin, Jessica. If you walked up to this concrete block, you could just about put your chin on the top of it. And then on top of that concrete block sat a machine, a gigantic machine. So the desert, you know, there's no trees out there. It's just, you know, we would go in the morning when it was cool, and I would you know, we would unload the extension ladder, and I would hoist it up, and I would climb up to the top of this gigantic machine. And there's hoses, there's all kind of wiring. And this machine, as I said, was classified, but we would perform a test on it. It'd take about an entire day just to prep the machine for the test. And we would test fire the experimental weapon. And then when we would test fire it, we would go back over the paperwork and compare our notes on this weapon. Now, what this weapon was a Star Wars laser. This was a Star Wars laser. Actually, before Germany fell, they were experimenting with lasers. And so this machine was first put into place around about 1951, 1952. And the year that I got out there is like 1972. So we're looking at least for 20 years that they had been trying to get this weapon to fire. There had never been a successful test fire of a weapon, a laser. And so we would do this. It'd take about a week to, you know, figure out what went wrong with the experiment. So about a day to prep the machine, and about 4 or 5 days, but you know, to take it apart and to you know, go over the notes and everything. So you figure about one test fire a week. It took an entire week to make one test fire. Now, Captain Joseph Mengele, going back to the document, the classified document that I had found earlier. What that was a laser, a handheld laser. Now, when you are during the Vietnam War, we're going to go back to the Vietnam War. A lot of people get gunshots. And when you're hitting your chest, you know, you have to be, a lot of times, to stop the bleeding or to figure out which organs are damaged, you have to open someone's chest up. And you have to get in there to repair whatever organ has been damaged. The problem is you can't put a dressing on the inside of your cavity, inside your chest. You can't do that. So you need to cauterize the wound to stop it from bleeding. All right. Now, in 1972, 1973, you know, people began smoking real heavily during World War II. So by 1972, you know, 25 years after the war, a lot of people are getting lung cancer or are getting a heart disease from smoking. The general public is. Now, the problem is, again, if somebody is going to go in there and do heart surgery, you have to stop. You don't want a leaking heart. You want to cauterize the cuts so they don't leak. I cannot tell you how many people died in the early 70s because they did not have a laser. If you were injured internally, if they could not stop the bleeding, you would most likely die. And very large numbers of Americans are dying on the operating table. Okay? Very large numbers of Americans died. It wasn't uncommon to see the surgeon walk out into the reception room with blood on his apron and tell you that he was sorry that your loved one died on the operating table. So, getting back to this diagram that was on Captain Joseph Mengele's desk, Joseph Mengele knew that the weapon was not firing properly. It had been worked on for 20, 25 years. But what Joseph Mengele had, Captain Joseph Mengele had, was that he had changed up the orifice of the laser where you could twist it a certain way and make the beam smaller or either larger. Okay, so Captain Mengele got permission from the military to travel from Monica, Pennsylvania to Nellis Air Force Base. He could not travel. Joseph Mengele could not get in a car or on a plane and travel without permission. So he got permission from the government to leave Monaco to come to Area 51. And when he came to Area 51, he met with the Navy. Now, the Navy, there was an admiral, rear admiral in the Navy that was over the laser. It's a classified. Both of these projects were highly classified. It doesn't mean if you're the president of the United States, president of the United States is not to be briefed. If you're a congressman, that doesn't mean that we're going to brief you on what that type of a black ops project. Okay, just because you're the president or you're a prime minister or a senator doesn't mean that we're going to talk to you. It's classified. Okay, so what happened was I went and we got a truck and we went to the warehouse. We had a whole room full with failed tests, boxes and boxes of papers. Because every time we test fired the weapon, we had a misfire. And all our notes were in the warehouse at Nellis Air Force Base. So we loaded up 2 pickup loads, really 1.5 pickup loads with nothing but documents. And we brought it out and it was given to Captain Joseph Mengele. See, Joseph Mengele, you don't want a laser to cut through 3 inches of steel. You just want a laser strong enough to cut tissue, to cauterize tissue. That's what Captain Joseph Mengele was interested in. Just cutting tissue, not cutting 3 inches of steel. Now, when Captain Joseph Mengele got a hold of the several thousand pages of the misfires, he was able to figure out. It took him about 3 or 4 months, but he was able to isolate a certain number of the tests that was favorable towards towards this laser gun that he had invented. So Area 51, they had to go in the machine shop, tool it, and build a handheld laser to be used on the operating room. Now, when this happened, you have to be able to experiment. You have to use this laser. So it was decided to use it on cattle. We needed to, we had to fine tune it to cattle before we put it on a human. So what occurred was we would get in black helicopters, because night vision had come out about that time, about 1972, 1973. That was another one of our inventions that came out at Area 51. Okay, we're still at war. You have to remember, the war did not end to 75, but 1972, 1973, we're training pilots to wear night vision. So what we did was I would get on the helicopter with other MIBs. We have night goggles on, and we had a handheld laser. Now, we're going to talk about the stockyards. Back in the early 70s, the cattle stockyards, say like in Nevada, Miesha, or in Georgia, Jessica, there was no national standards for these stockyards. Each state had their own individual laws governing livestock. So they were finding out, we were seeing cattle that had tumors on it. Okay. Now, in past times, they would just take cattle with tumors and cut it up and put it into the meat.
Yuck.
And
That's
the men
so
in
gross.
black, yes, the men in black said, well, we don't want to eat tumor meat.
No. Who does?
We don't want to eat a sick cow. So, but the problem was that you get a small rancher and he's got 3 or 4 kids and he's got a wife to feed, and he couldn't afford a vet. It's either pay a vet or either, get rid of the cow. So they would load up the sick cow, and the wife would get in the truck with the kids, with the trailer behind it, and she would drive to the stockyard. And the individual stockyards were mostly independent. And it's either take the cow or the woman and the children may not have anything, to live off of. So the stockyards would kind of turn their head and say, go on and put the sick cow in there. Okay.
Oh man. It can't be worse than what's in a McDonald's burger for entertainment purposes only. Just saying.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're eating when it comes to that kind of stuff, y'all. Sorry. It's the truth.
Well, some stockyards did have some standards. They didn't really think it was wise eating tumor meat. But what they would do,
and I apologize to the audience, y'all. I'm sorry. I know this is gross. I should have put a warning up before we started the show. Listen at your own risk, y'all. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Jimmy. Sorry about that.
Well, some stockyards, they were compassionate. Most cattlemen do have compassion. So what they thought, they said, well, we really don't want our folks eating this tumor meat, but we're just going to take that sick cow and we're going to ground it up and we're going to make feed out of it, and we'll feed the other cows this cow
Nasty
here.
meat. Ugh.
Well, the problem with that was the cows, some of them had what we now know as mad cow disease. Now, mad cow disease can be transmitted to humans.
Yeah.
So if you feed one sick cow, you ground him up, and you feed it to say 100 cows, 50 to 100 cows, then you got 50 to 100 mad cows out there, and then you infect the population.
We're all mad here. Mad cows.
Okay?
Yeah. That's terrible.
So the men in black kind of got to the next to the cattlemen and said, look, we got a problem here, and we'll take them old sick cows off your hands. So to nationalize the Cattlemen's Association, to get in all 50 states, they had to say, well, look, we got to offer the independent rancher, a little protection here. So the Cattlemen's Association got with the insurance companies. They said, look, if any of our cows are stolen or killed or whatever, we want y'all, the insurance company, pay for it. So the insurance company got with the Cattlemen's Association. They started insuring the livestock, which it should have been the whole time, but it wasn't. It wasn't until the MIBs got with the cattlemen, and then they started pushing the insurance company to insure these the herds. Now, so what we would do at night, we would get in the helicopters and we would, test out our night vision goggles, and we would fly out into a field. Sometimes they would take like paint guns and mark the cattle, like a paintball, but at nighttime it is kind of hard to see the the paintball coloring and everything. But we would fly out into the herd, and we would shoot them with tranquilizers, and then we'd lower straps down, and we would hook up the cattle and pick them up. And we had an 18-wheeler, and this 18-wheeler it was a box on the back of the 18-wheeler, and it had hydraulics on the roof, and the roof would open up, it'll fold back, and inside the 18-wheeler was an autopsy table, and underneath the truck there were like 1,000 I think it's 300 either 500 gallon tanks underneath it.
Wow.
And when we would fly over the 18-wheeler, we would lower the helicopter down, we'd lower it in onto the autopsy table, and then the straps would be undone by a technician in there, and then we would lift up from the truck, and then they would close the roof. They flip the switch and the hydraulics would close the roof back down, and then the technicians in there would power the lasers up and cut on the cattle. At the time they were cutting on the cattle, they were draining the blood from the cattle. Okay?
Jimmy, this is a big deal with what you're telling us right now, because we've been looking into cattle mutilations for decades. And what you're saying to the audience and to us tonight is that that was not ET, that was human. That was the result of humans taking those cows.
Well, let me kind of inject some more stuff here now.
Okay.
Some cows were taken by extraterrestrials. Now, going back to the blood and everything, little grays don't have an anus. They don't have a penis or you know, they don't have sex organs. You know what I mean?
Yes.
All right. Now,
I know what you mean. I guess.
they take their nutrients through their skin. So if you took a vat of nothing but blood, they go into it and they dip themselves into the blood. They absorb their nutrients through their skin.
Whoa.
Okay?
Really?
Yeah. That's
wow.
how they
I didn't know
you
that.
got to remember. That's how they feed is through their skin. Now, during 1973, the Greys were off world. They were doing some mining off of one of Jupiter moons. I know this for a fact because I've been around little Greys. But what a problem that we were having, we were trying to do this very quietly because we didn't want the public to know what we're doing. Okay. Now, there was an investigative researcher by the name of Linda Moulton Howe. And Linda Moulton Howe's kind of young. And she's seeing cattle with, you know, with burn marks on them, with the blood drain. She doesn't understand it. And she is looking at this. She doesn't understand what she's seeing. Now, she got to doing a lot of talking, and she would go and say, hey, don't other words, if you have a cow, don't bring it to this slaughterhouse because around the slaughterhouse there's around these counties that are near the slaughterhouse, or they're finding the cows, and they don't want Linda Moulton Howe to show up at a you know, a stock yard. It's bad for business. They don't want people scared to trade with them. They want their business to continue on. So Linda Moulton Howe, and she actually made the cattlemen mad at her. Okay, they don't want any attention. They want everything to continue on. Now, Linda Moulton Howe does not know me, but she made such a commotion of it. You got to wait 1 second while this phone stops ringing.
It's okay, Jimmy. It's not that loud.
It should stop.
Yeah.
Stop now. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
Now, she made such a commotion about it that you know, it made us start wondering, maybe something isn't right. So I got with the little Grays, and we asked them for their list of how many cattle that they had taken. Well, the little Grays produced their list. It was nothing. It was about 24 cows, I think, that the little Grays took. Okay. But they were below their schedule. because, like I said, most of them was off-world. They were doing some mining off of one of Jupiter's moons. But we knew that the cattle we did, you know, had the laser burns on them. But some of the cattle were being skinned. We weren't skinning the cattle, and the little grays weren't skinning the cattle.
Now, by skin, what do you mean? Because I mean, I want to warn the audience. I did show a picture of a cow mutilation. Okay, and what do you mean by skin, Jimmy? You mean like all their skin was taken off?
Well, they were being butchered in the field. Okay.
Okay, more than what we're showing on the screen right now.
They were being cut with knives instead of a laser.
Oh, you could tell the difference between the knife and a laser, because lasers are precise. Okay.
Okay. But now little grays don't eat meat. They only want the blood. Okay.
Oh,
because
gosh.
that's a nutrient.
It's always about the blood. Always.
Well, you have to remember, our little grays are helping us. The Russians also have little grays. Okay.
Okay.
Now, our little grays tell us what the Russian little grays are up to. But as I said, they don't have any use for the cow. So they drop the cow back on the ground. There's no laser marks on them. There's just no blood in the cow. Our cattle, have laser marks on them, and the blood is drained as well. But the cattle that was coming up, particularly in East Texas, were being skinned. All right, some of the meat was taken from the cattle. So when we checked with the little grays, and like I said, they produced their records. They weren't hiding anything. And then we knew how many cattle that we had taken. But we're starting to see some cattle that neither one of us took. Okay. So let me get back. Let me tell you something else that was going on during the time. Now, we had other researchers that were assisting us trying to perfect this laser. You have Group A and Group B. Now, I'm with Group A. We're seasoned, we're much older. Group B is kind of a younger crowd, maybe about, they're much younger. We had two researchers with Group B. They're not MIBs. They're just scientists, young scientists. All right, so we have two scientists in Group B. And we also have two presidential models. That was with Group B.
Now Jimmy, but before you go further, can you explain what a presidential model is to the audience?
Oh, a presidential model is basically, she's female intelligence. She works female intelligence. Okay.
Okay.
Now, I would say 1975 or 1974. Of course, this is still a few years off. We would have a very, very bad security breach. And all of the people at CIA in the United States, all of the CIA agents, every field officer there was, all their personal information was hacked out of a computer. All the people at NSA, all their personal data was breached as well. All the people in the FBI, all their personal data was breached.
Wow.
All the people in Army intelligence, Naval intelligence, Air Force, and Coast Guard intelligence was breached, along with Supreme Court judges. So basically, everybody, if you had any type of security clearance in the United States, and there's like 17, 18 intelligence agencies, the whole shebang went down. But the MIBs being in Industrial Park, I think there was about 14 of us. We weren't breached. And we have, as I said, a few presidential models who were in the industrial park. They were not breached in the security. What occurred with the security going down. Okay, so we only have a handful of presidential models, and they got all of North America. Now, we did have Group 40 down in Mexico. Group 40 doesn't mean there's 40 individuals. That's just the name group. They call them the Group 40. They're just a handful. So we had just a few down in in Mexico that had they were going to work all South America. Group 40 is Lee Harvey Oswald intelligence group. When I say Group 40, that's Lee Harvey Oswald's group. Okay. So, but getting back to these presidential models, we had one name, her name, we're going to go by the name they used in the movie. We're not going to go by her personal name for privacy reasons. Her name was Sally, and she had an eminent brother called Franklin, who was in a wheelchair. Now, tonight we're talking about two movies. One is the Texas Slaughter Family, and then we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, when I was with Group A working on the laser, Sally wanted to go to her grandmother's place up in East Texas and bring her eminent brother, and they were going to go take off the weekend and go back to their old home. So they took off. Okay. Now, Group A, I'm with, I'm still working on the laser. But several days pass and they never came back. And we start looking for them. Something's not right. Okay. Something's not right. So we have a gun show coming up in Austin, Texas. And we were going to go to the gun show anyway to pick up some weapons to haul down to South America. Okay. I'm a gun runner. But we knew that Sally and her eminent brother Franklin, had gone in that area and disappeared. So me and another MIB, went ahead and headed to the gun show. He was going to go to the gun show and secure the weapons. And I stopped at a roadside little store, and I picked up a presidential Molly by the name of Dolly. And Dolly is from that part of the country, but she's going to assist me to try to find the other presidential models. Okay.
Who
So I get with her.
so I don't mean to interrupt you, Jimmy, but so presidential models, I know we've got some people in the chat, and of course we have Miesha here. We're talking about like MK Ultra victims, basically, right? Miesha, Miesha? Okay.
Yes, I'm a presidential model, a monarch. So monarchs are slaves that have been programmed usually from childhood. They make sure that they first get our family involved one way or another in cases where they're watching a parent who is abusive or sexually abusive or things like that. So those are the kind of people that they're looking for. And so then they will take in the kids in different ways, sometimes by blackmailing the parents and sometimes just taking the kids and tricking the parents, and put us into places like institutions and mind control as torture-based mind control, desensitization, splitting the psyche so that we have altars. And so the altars are part of the monarch program where we don't have any idea of what we're doing. We have missing periods of time. Like I had 2 missing periods of 8 months in each time in a 3-year period where I was taken and used in the program for different kinds of things. And one of them had to do with politics and politicians and things like that. So, so this gal just happened to probably be, on her way to a job, or maybe even on a break or whatever. It's hard to say, but yeah. So that's mainly it. It's a mind control programmed young women, and they start very, very young. And usually, we're started to be used as presidential models between the ages of 16, 17, 18, and up. And by 30, you're already into the programs where you're into the Omega program, the Alpha program. And so the first program, Omega, is being, well, I should start with the first one. The Alpha programming is being trained to have a photographic memory and be able to remember everything that all the other altars know, say, and do. So you've got certain altars that are the front altar who indeed do take that front altar, and they know what all the other ones are doing. However, we're never the front altar. The people who are the victims, if you want to call it victims, I call it survivors. Mm-hmm. When we have no recollection of what at all is going on, just a bunch of missing time or missing periods. In these days now, they can do it astrally even. So it's really interesting because they can actually take you astrally too. So anyway, that's just kind of fill you in. There's also the beta slave program, which is teaching. And we went to, like I should say, for me, I was taken into San Francisco to be trained in very high society, how to be in the high society and politics and stuff like that, being able to eat and dress and all of those. So to pass for a really sophisticated lady, it may be at 18 years old, so that you could just be a wonderful spy. So because they use this in the spying program as well. So many of us are used for that. We sometimes go in and we have to get information, and sometimes we're just used in the spies to be in the beta slave, to be in the, what we might call the, I always have a block on this word.
Is it a honeypot, maybe?
That's the word.
That's the word. Yeah, that's sorry.
Lock on every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so it's a honeypot, so that they will bring in politicians, governors, presidents, judges, lawyers, and they
Wow.
will put them in bad situations with not only presidential models, but children. And that's where the children come into this bad thing as well. Okay.
Oh gosh.
So, yeah, so that's just kind of give you a little idea. If you want more information, I actually have support groups for these people who have experienced this that I do. In fact, I've got one coming up with a special guest, Olivia James, and she's going to be on my show. I mean, not my show, but on my support group on the third Wednesday of the month. So.
And we have your website on the ticker right here and in the description box if you guys would like to reach out with Miesha.
You can go in and find they go to the virtual groups, and that's where they find the calendar and the information about the virtual groups.
Thank you,
I've been
Miesha.
doing them for 13 years now online as well.
Thank you. That's a wonderful resource. And I'm sorry that you've experienced that. And I'm very, very honored and blessed to have you here tonight. Thank you.
Well, me too, because I survived. Because so many, if we do not make it about 29 years old, is the drop-off point for the unlive, either by suicide or different methods and such. It's called the Omega programming.
Oh my gosh, I've heard about that before.
Programming into the altars to take you out in one way or another, whether it be physically, take you out that way. I'm trying to be unalive you that way,
right.
or they put you into drugs or a lifestyle that's very dangerous and very deadly, where you'll end up dying, unaliving yourself.
Oh my gosh! Okay. Thank you for explaining that to us.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, thank you for explaining that, and Jimmy. I'm sorry we interrupted you there, okay? But I think that I think it's important for us to establish exactly what you were referring to as a presidential model, especially since we have Miesha here tonight.
Now, better known as monarch and beta slaves.
Okay.
Let me make a brief comment on this before we move on. Now, the Army has females in intelligence, the Air Force, Coast Guard, Marines, the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, FBI, CIA. Now, when we say presidential model, I'm strictly talking about the ones that work with MIBs. Now, presidential models technically fall under the Navy. Miesha falls under the Navy. Okay, that's where she comes in at. But a lot of these other, when the security breach occurred, that's when Miesha really came into focus. Okay. Now, majority of the ones that were abused were like in the Army. Those aren't presidential models, or the Air Force, or the Coast Guard, or the CIA. Those aren't presidential models. Those are women that fall under monarch, but they're not presidential models. Only the ones in the Navy are presidential models. So I'm confirming tonight, Miesha is a presidential model. So you can have a female in the Army to go through monarch, and she can have, these experiences, but she's not a presidential model. She's a monarch. The Army can have monarchs. Now, MK Ultra stands for manufactured killers utilizing lethal tradecraft requiring assassination. That's what males go through. All males go through MK Ultra. All females go through monarch. And then you have, like I said, Miesha broke it down about the beta and Amiga, all that, the sex kitten training, all that other stuff. But when I speak of presidential models, I'm only talking about the Navy. Okay. Now, there's only a handful of presidential models. There's a ton of monarch models. Okay. There are a dime a dozen, the monarchs, but presidential models are very limited. All right. Well, we've covered that. Let me get back to what is going on here. Now, when I left Nellis Air Force Base, we made a stop over in Austin, and I broke off from the other MIB. He's gone to the gun show to secure weapons. And I have taken the station wagon and drove on maybe about 40 or so more miles or so to pick up a presidential model called Dolly. Dolly's from East Texas, and we're trying to find what has happened to these two presidential models, along with the two other engineers and the and Dolly's brother. You know, he's wheelchair bound. Well, when I picked up Dolly, you know, Dolly has remote viewing. So I'm driving and she's trying to, you know, zero in where this other group is at. And the car that I'm in, the fuel gauge is faulty. Now in the movie it says I forgot to fill up. That's a little bit incorrect. It's not a documentary. It's just that, you know, the fuel gauge did not work. And when I hit a bump and it went from like 3/4 of a tank down to about less than an eighth of a tank.
God, I hate it when
And
that happens.
yeah. Well, the cars back then were, you know, gauges in the cars were not very good back then. But I ran out of fuel on a back road. And so me and Dolly, you know, got to walking. And it is hot. Okay. It's dead of summer. And so me and Dolly started walking. And we came upon a pickup truck. And there's some men in it. And we get to talking to them. And they were hesitant, but they did offer to let us, you know, ride to the next nearest service station or to the next nearest phone we could get to. Because back then they didn't have cell phones. Okay. You broke down on the back road, you didn't have a cell phone. But when we walked to the back of the truck, Dolly, you know, her sixth sense kicked in, her female intuition kicked in. She didn't feel comfortable. She had a bad feeling about it. So I told the other two gentlemen, I said, well, we'll just wait. You know, we'll be all right. So they drove on. Now, that was part of the family that had abducted Dolly. Well, not Dolly. They had abducted Sally and her infant brother Franklin and the other technicians. So we walked on a while. It's getting towards dusk. And we walked several miles, you know. And I come upon an old country store. Now, this is on a back road. And so I walked into the store. It's kind of deserted, you know. And when I walked in, there's a bar in there where, you sit, get something to eat. It's nothing fancy. And there are some gas pumps out front, and they're out of fuel. But because it had a sign on it, out of fuel. But when I went in there, I hollered out. I didn't see anybody, but I thought I heard a pig. So squealing going on back behind the counter. There's a door there.
Oh my gosh.
And so I went back there and I went through a door, and I'm jumped. I'm jumped from behind, and I'm struggling with one of the guys that were in the truck. And I fell to the floor. And when I fell to the floor, my head hit the floor. It kind of knocked me out, you know. And but when I woke up, I'm tied to a pipe over my head. And what had happened was he had went out there and caught Dolly, and he hit her and knocked her out. And well, actually, before he hit her, she'd almost made it to the road, and the other guy that was in the pickup drove up, and they chased her, and he hit her in the head with a shovel, knocked her out, knocked the presidential model out. And when she woke up, she was inside the business there, and she was tied to a chair. And what had happened was there was a third person in the building there that had been murdered. There was a drifter earlier in the day that was hitchhiking, and this pair had picked up a drifter.
Jimmy,
and,
was that the Vietnam War veteran?
Yeah. It was a Vietnam War veteran that was hitchhiking, and he had stopped at that store earlier that day, and he was attacked and knocked out. But while I was in the back room tied to the pipe, what happened was Leatherface carried him out, and he put him in the room with Dolly, and he cranked up the chainsaw, and he cut the Vietnam veteran up with the chainsaw. And this caused Dolly, now getting back to the trauma that presidential models have, this broke her. This shattered this presidential model. It made her head multiple. She did not have multiple personality disorder till that happened. So when Miesha started talking earlier about, about missing time, that's what's happened to this presidential model. She's been shattered. Can you imagine? You're tied to a chair, you've been hit in the head with a shovel, and you wake up and you're tied to a chair, and there's a man with a human face over his face. See, Leatherface had cut the face off of this man and put it over his face.
Sounds familiar.
The Vietnam vet, his face was cut off, and Leatherface put his face on him, on himself.
I would disassociate for sure. That's what any human would do. I think.
Well,
You disassociate, or you just lose your marbles, as they say.
well,
just screaming.
Dolly thought it was me because the face was cut off, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So she.
Yes.
That's why we have two. That's why we have two movies tonight. We have the Texas Slaughter Family, and then we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The same movie, but it's told from two different perspectives here. Now, during the time that the man was being cut up with a chainsaw, I was able.
Sorry. Yeah, viewer discretion is advised, everyone. This is the gory part. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I was able to get loose, get untied. Now the only thing I have is a boot knife. Okay.
Everybody needs a boot knife. Okay. This is why.
The problem is there's three of them, and there's one of me. And Leatherface is a chainsaw. I do not know if there was a gun in the back. There was a rifle in the back of the pickup truck, as seen earlier that day. So it comes down to it. I've got to get some help. I got to get some firepower. I got to get out of there and leave the presidential model. Okay. I didn't want to do that, but the only way I can help her is to help myself first, and that's to get armed. So I was able to get loose. And when I got out the back of the house through a window, I closed it after I got out of there, or the business here. And I went to try to find the other MIB because I knew that he was going to get guns. You know, he had supposed to have the guns from the gun show. Well, while I was gone, the MIBs, two MIBs showed up, and they were looking for me. They had seen the station wagon, you know, a few miles down the road, and they just kept driving till they saw this business that had the gas pumps out front. So you have to remember, you know, the gas gauge is faulty. He knew the gas gauge was faulty. And then he's, you know, I'm on the same road where the back road where the same gas station is. It ain't but about 7 or so miles, you know, from the station wagon to the gas station. So when he got there, they got out, but one of the MIBs looked down and they see a finger.
Just a finger.
Just a finger on the ground. So he knows something's not right.
Or as we say in the South, fanger. We say fanger. At least I do. Sorry, Jimmy.
Well, we have not only group B missing, we have group A missing now.
Oh my gosh.
And we have the finger out in front of the business laying on the ground.
Well, Jimmy,
so he questions.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Why again? Why did y'all have so many teams out there again? Was it for the cattle mutilations?
Well, we were due to go. Okay. We were due to go to Austin to pick up weapons to run to South America.
Oh.
We
gun
knew.
Running. Okay.
Yeah. We knew that Sally and her inlet brother Franklin, that they lived up down not far from that gas station, but we didn't know where they lived. Okay, we knew they were somewhere in the general area. Okay. All right. Now, getting back to the finger. Once they found the finger, they stood outside and they talked. The one of the family members stood behind the door, the screen door, and they wouldn't open the screen door up. So the men in the other MIBs are, like I said, they have a bad feeling. They know something's up. So they leave. They leave to go get some firepower. And I'm trying to find them, and they're trying to find me. So I'm heading. I'm going to where I think I can, get back to the main road. And but nightfall, it's getting towards nightfall, and they decide to come back. They looked for me. They couldn't find me, but they got the guns and they came back. And when they went back the second time to talk to them, to talk to the family, one of the family members opened the door, and he had a rifle, and they opened up fire on the MIBs. And I think it was well, it's either 2 or 3 MIBs were killed that night at the gas station. So, yeah, I want to say it was 3 MIBs was gunned down because they were basically ambushed. There was other family members about the property that had guns. So they were ambushed and they were killed.
Jimmy, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So if so many MIBs and assets, let's call them assets of men and women were taken out and went missing, was there a retaliation with our government after all of this, or what happened? Maybe we'll get to it. Maybe I'm getting ahead of the game here.
Well, we're expendable.
Oh, expendable.
Exactly. Expendable.
Oh my gosh. That's terrible.
So it's getting towards night, and I went back to the drop point, and I retrieved a weapon. I'm now armed. So I head back to the business. And when I got there, my concern was I needed transportation. I've got to get into the house, and I got to get Dolly. And I'm armed now. Now, prior to me getting there, Dolly woke up, and she is at a table, and there, let me back up just a second. When Dolly woke up, she's in a room, and there's an old man, probably about damn near 100 years old, and he's over in the corner of the room. He's real old.
Creepy.
And this woman walks into the door, and she's toting a Bible. And she tells Dolly, she says, what are you doing here? And where's the other man that you were with? We can't find him. And Dolly says, please let me go. I'll do anything you want. And she says to Dolly, she starts talking scripture. She's quoting from the Bible. An eye for an eye, stuff like that, a tooth for a tooth. And she tells Dolly, she says, I'm not going to let you harm my family. But she leaves out of the room. She comes back in with a bowl and a spoon. And basically what it is human blood. And she is feeding human blood to the old man. Okay.
Ew.
Now, yeah.
I heard that blood makes people look younger, but in that movie, he looks really old.
Well, he's the head cannibal. Okay.
He must be like 300 years old. I'm just
well,
kidding.
She ended up, I want to say she either got up again and she got hit, or either she passed out. It's what it's in the movie, but she ends up again, like I said. They went and they cut her. One of the other male members came in there and they cut her finger. They grabbed her hand and they opened her hand up. They cut Dolly's finger. And then they rolled the old man over there and they forced her finger open when the old man was sucking the blood from her finger. Now, if you watch the movie, you'll see the old man sucking her finger. And she is, like I said, she started screaming and she passed out. Okay.
I would too. I 100% would too. That's worse than a chainsaw coming at me, I think. I don't know what's worse, Jimmy.
Well, when she woke up the second time or whatever, she's at a table and the lamp in the room is the lamp has human skin on it. And there is, there's the body is cut up and it's on the table, and they are cannibal. They're eating the body of the Vietnam vet that they had killed earlier that day.
Oh, yeah.
They were eating his body, and they were taking some of the food and trying to force it into Dolly's mouth.
Ugh.
Okay.
You know what? Jimmy, when I'm hearing you talk about this, I'm thinking like maybe this movie was, and I know you're giving us the true story behind it, but also it feels like this is soft disclosure for what has been released and the public is aware of at this point, that the elites with a little e, the deletes, I like to say, they've been doing this for centuries, decades. And in this movie, the movie based on a true event is just soft disclosure.
Well, I advise the movie crew on the Texas Slaughter family. I went on site and we filmed, what had occurred on site. So the Texas Slaughter family, that was, I was the advisor on that movie site. So that's very accurate. Now, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's Dolly's recollection of it. You remember she's got multiple personality disorder because she's been traumatized. Now, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out in 1970. I think it's 1974 it came out. The Texas Slaughter family didn't come out to 2024. So what I did, that information was only declassified about 24 months ago. Okay. Now let me get back to tell you what happened. when Dolly woke up and they're, consuming the
Flesh.
drifter's remains,
Yeah. Ugh.
Dolly started begging for her life, and she told them that she'd do anything they said, just let her go. But what happened was they were going to kill her, and they wanted Grandpa to have a little fun. So they went and got a hammer, and they got a tub, a tin tub, and laid it down. And they had Dolly's hands. They held her hands behind her back, and they leaned her over. And they gave the hammer to the old man to hit her in the head, to knock her brains out. See, the old man used to work for a slaughter company, slaughtering the cattle. He hit the cattle in the head.
I remember that from the movie. I remember that.
Yeah.
The hitchhiker they picked up in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he worked at the slaughterhouse. He had a picture of him actually putting some cows down or something. Remember? That was in the movie.
Well, yeah. Now, in the movie where he went to the cemetery, they were digging up graves. The younger one was digging graves up at the cemetery. And the cemetery was it was way north of that area, and he had taken the remains of the body out and took some wire and had wrapped the corpse's legs to the top of the tombstone, and then put the head of another cadaver in the hands of the cadaver that was sitting on the tombstone. So that part is pretty accurate about the graveyard, about digging up not only were they killing people and eating people, they were digging people up and eating the flesh, the rotten flesh. They were making head cheese out of the brains. Okay.
You know what? I'll have to tell you, Jimmy, we put this show off until this week, and it's so timely because a lot of people could, and I still can't wrap my head around this, but with the release of those files, that huge dump they did this past week, they talk about eating humans and stuff.
Yeah.
And so here we are, and we're connecting this to, I'm not saying the MIBs weren't doing it and the assets weren't doing it, but you came across a family at a compound that was. And like I said, this is kind of like soft disclosure for today, I think, from back
Well, when the old man, he tried several times, he just couldn't hold the hammer. And they got frustrated. They were going to take the hammer and go ahead and knock her brains out like they do the cattle.
Jeez.
And Dolly broke loose, and Dolly ran, and she jumped through the window. Okay. She was trying to escape. She injured her leg in the process. But what happened was, I was outside, and I had hot wired the pickup truck that they had used earlier that day. I managed to get to the pickup truck. I hot wired it, and just as I was starting the truck up, the female that was in the house came out with her Bible, and I backed up and hit her and knocked her, about 20 or so feet. And then I put it in drive, and I drove towards the front of the house. And Dolly is running down the road. She's got, Leatherface chasing her with the chainsaw. Now, about the time this occurred, there's an 18-wheeler coming down the road, and in the 18-wheeler was another MIB. And he saw Leatherface chasing Dolly with the chainsaw, and he stopped he stopped his truck on the road because he's an MIB, and he opened the door, and by that time I was in the pickup truck. I stopped in the road, and I jumped out, and I grabbed Dolly and helped her into the 18-wheeler. All three of us got into the 18-wheeler at that time. And Leatherface took the chainsaw and he hit the side of the door with the chainsaw. He couldn't cut through the steel. And so the other MIB opened the door on the other side of the truck, the 18-wheeler, the cattle truck, and he got out with with Dolly. And then I got out and I grabbed the a monkey wrench or some type of a wrench. I grabbed a wrench, and I was trying to hold him off because, like I said, Dolly had injured her leg, and the other MIB was, trying to, get to the truck, the pickup truck that was behind the 18-wheeler. So I threw the wrench and hit Leatherface, and when I did, Leatherface fell to the ground, and the chainsaw cut Leatherface's leg. Okay.
Cut his artery, I hope.
Just cut his leg.
Okay.
And so Dolly and the other MIB got into the truck, and I ran and I take that back. I jumped into the pickup truck first, and then the MIB jumped into the passenger side. See, Dolly broke left and the MIB broke right. He was able to separate Dolly from the MIB. But what I did, I circled back, and I was able to slow the truck down and Dolly ran and was able to get in the back of the truck. And as I am driving off with Dolly in the back of the truck, she's crying and laughing and very hysterical. See, what had happened was right before I rode up, one of the younger ones that had robbed the grave had ran out in front of the truck, and the MIB had ran over him about a minute before I got there. And Dolly saw the man being run over by 18-wheeler. She witnessed that. So when a presidential, when you look at a presidential model and they say, I can't remember what happened, for compassionate reasons, we don't try to make them remember. We want them to forget. We don't want them to live with that. Okay. So Dolly was tased with the I tased Dolly where she would remember. Any questions?
Sorry. No, I hit some buttons there. Sorry. I was doing a mix match session on the screen right there. Sorry about that. I am just I mean, I'm at a loss for words for all this because, this is a movie that I grew up. I watched parts of it. I never sat down and watched the whole movie until I watched it with you guys. And now seeing that this is actually real, this is another movie in the list of soft disclosure that we can add to we're adding this to the list. Jimmy, you have been on the forefront of this disclosure movement with these movies. You and James did a lot of shows together exposing some of these, the real story behind a lot of these movies, but things that we've been told were science fiction are actually not science fiction. They are based on true stories. And it's so much deeper.
Jimmy started on my show. When was it? I think it was probably had a radio show for about 10 years, and I was the first to bring him on a show. And that was, I don't know, at least 12 years ago or something like that, maybe longer. I don't know. Don't remember.
Wow.
Remember?
Y'all been doing this a while.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what that family was doing, they were taking the victims and cutting them up, and they would take the intestines and ground the human flesh up, and would smoke it and sell it to people that would pull into that little country store.
I mean, Jimmy, it's not uncommon to hear about that today, about people going missing, and then the word gets out that maybe there was some kind of barbecue place on the side of the road or something. I mean, it's absolutely horrific. We don't even want to think about it. But like I said, with those files coming out, and it's kind of like what people do. There's like a whole, I'm going to say like another subspecies of human. I'm going to say subspecies because normal people don't eat humans. Okay.
Well,
no.
Leatherface, when I was tied up, now, when I woke up, Leatherface was in another room. Leatherface was watching cartoons. See, Leatherface is retarded, and he's deformed. All right. The whole time that if you watch the Texas Slaughter Family, you'll hear the TV in the background playing the cartoons that he was watching. Okay.
So he had a learning disability, basically.
Well, he was deformed. He was deformed in the face. He was inbred.
Well, and also if they're cannibalistic, then they have like kuru. Is that what you call it? I've been learning about that this past week as well. Or it puts holes in your tongue and it puts blisters on your mouth, and it makes you. It's like what is that? Chronic wasting disease? Is that what it is? It's something kind of like that, maybe.
Well, when you're inbred, he had clipped lipped. Now, if we do Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, then I'll go into details on how what I saw when he was taken out, and I will as I said, there's a lot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies out. There's well over a dozen. Now, only but 3 movies are accurate. If we do Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, then I will tell you the true ending to Leatherface. And then I will tell you a little more about the history. And if you watch the movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, it'll show a house. That house is one of the actual sites that that's a house where one of the family members was staying.
Is it that house, Jimmy, behind him, or is it the smaller house? Can you see that? There's a couple different houses.
That house there is a likeness of it.
Okay.
Okay. There was a swimming hole in the back of the house that had dried up between that property and the property where Sally and her immigrant brother Franklin used to own. But I have been to both properties. I believe that is the house there. Now that I look at it, like I said, now that house there has been moved a house moving service came and moved that and made that into a restaurant of all things. Moved it about 60 miles away.
Wow.
And people go there, and it's decorated, with posters,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of unusual that people pay for stuff like that.
Oh yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, Nathan, I don't watch movies like this, Jimmy. I try my best not to. Miesha and I don't watch stuff like this if we can help it.
Okay.
And I know you probably don't either, Jimmy. But
Well,
Nathan, thank you for that super sticker. I just wanted to point out real quick, Jimmy. Nathan said when watching films like this or Hostile, many others hit hard because some of us understand they aren't fiction and they are about torture. Okay, a lot of it is they put this on the screen psychologically very devastating for people to watch. It does something inherently just seeing that happen. But it's about the torture, and that's something that's come out in those files. And like Miesha, you were saying, that's a big part of the MK Ultra Monarch programming is torture.
It's torture. Yeah, with different monarch programs. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that the MIBs do not shatter the presidential models. The presidential models are high stress jobs. Okay. There's very strange people. Like I said, when the presidential model gets intimate, they end up with a lot of strange, sick people in the bedroom. Okay, they get abused, but they're utilized, as I said, back in around the mid 70s. There was a security breach, and that's when Miesha was activated. Is when all the other intelligence went down, and sometimes we do things we don't want to do, but it's for the good of the country, you see. And yes, the monarchs do get abused, but that's the Army or the Air Force or the CIA or NSA. Presidential models that are tied up with the MIBs, they're treated pretty good, and also naval intelligence is pretty good. It's just when you get outside the Navy area that you really come into contact with some really sleazy people like the Epson, Jeffrey Epson,
Yes.
we don't have control over that. And that's not our females. Those aren't presidential models that are tied up with Epson's case. Those are monarchs. Go ahead.
I wanted to also state that the torture does not happen when we're adults. We are programmed to be that way, whether it happens in our family, whether they take us early, but I just want that people to understand that. Now, I'm trying to think. No, I don't remember any torture when I became a teenager or an adult, but you have to be programmed. You have to have you have to have your psyche split and shattered in order to be able to be used in these programs. So, yeah, if they think, it's for the government to serve your country and all of that, even to me, bunch of bull that they told us. But the ultimate goal is we were expendable and they used us like they wanted to use us. So I can't say that it was for our country. That's my opinion of mine.
Well, I look at it like this. the Russians have over 10,000 nuclear weapons. We don't know how many Chinese have. We live in a very, very dangerous world.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about when Jessica said earlier, they were during the Epstein files where people were eating that people were cannibalistic.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have these presidential models. There's just so much that MIB can do.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the presidential models come in. They're our butterflies. They're our monarchs. Okay. They're our heroines. And we use them because we use them for communications. Okay. And as I said, a man needs a woman and a woman needs a man. And there are, as I said, if this country's ever invaded, and this is my biggest concern, is that just because you may say you're an ex-presidential model,
I know.
it doesn't mean that somebody from a foreign intelligence agent is going to write you off, because they want everybody, not just present but past as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this type of work, people think being a presidential model is fun and everything. It's a very dangerous job.
Mm-hmm.
These women are highly trained. They're picked for their beauty. They're picked for their wits, and they do have psychic
abilities.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
And psychic abilities.
That's what I said, psychic.
And we have a question in the chat too from Rhodey. Hey, Rhodey, she says, are the monarchs being referred to today connected to Montauk? Are they connect? Are you guys connected? Are you connected to Montauk?
No.
Okay.
There would that he can explain that did come along later with women and girls, I should say, and then, but no, I never had anything to do with Montauk myself.
Okay.
I want to answer that question. Could you put the question back up again? Sure. Let me say this. We do have presidential models that are associated with Montauk and time travel.
Mm-hmm.
But these women came from Fort Tilden, which is the other side of Long Island. And Fort Tilden had a head start. That's where the females came in at, was from Fort Tilden. And they would drive them up to Brookhaven Labs, which is about 60 miles south, well, just about 60 miles from Camp Hero. And they had apartments there that they would, stay overnight or so. And then from there, they would drive them to Camp Hero, and they would do a time jump with the Montauk boys. Now, a Fort Tilden girl was not considered to be a Montauk girl till she was matched up with a Montauk boy. She has to be matched up with a Montauk boy before she becomes a Montauk girl. And they did time jump, but it was very late in the program. We had to get the bugs worked out of get the microwave radiation turned down in the, before they could do the time jumps. And we have had presidential models on the Titanic.
Really?
I'm Jack Dawson.
Oh my goodness.
I went there to rob the safe. I'll do one day, somewhere down the road, I'll open the X file up on the Titanic. But right now we still have to get through with that is if we do Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I would like to clear that one out. And that would be another program to follow this. But you would first have, like I said, you would have to watch the movie The Texas Slaughter Family, and then watch the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the one you just had up. And then once the viewer is digested that and got that soaked in, and if you think the numbers are up, and we'll do two, but that's up to you, Jessica.
Okay.
Because
this one goes.
I'll pass on that one, but I'd be happy to be with the Titanic.
Miesha's done. No more gory stuff.
Yeah, I can reserve you a seat. Hey, Miesha.
Yes, dear.
I can reserve you a seat, but it's got to be on the Titanic now.
Oh, right. The Titanic would be okay. I mean, I don't have any memories about the Titanic, but yeah.
Well,
and I don't actually have Chainsaw Massacre memories either. Thank God.
Oh my God. Anything but a Leatherface coming at you. Oh my gosh.
Well, I am terrified of chainsaws. I don't know.
Man.
Terrified me.
Well, I just want to put it out there tonight that when these presidential models have they have a block, they can't remember things. There's a reason for that. And it, like I said, Dolly being tased, that was a reason. Because had she not been, she'd have been in an insane asylum, and she was able to get her life back, and she went on to have children and everything. And if you look at Miesha and look how well Miesha's doing, but I don't know what happened to Miesha. Me and Miesha met on a bus. I rode in the back with Sirhan. But like I said, Miesha gets to ride the front of the bus, and I'll ride the back with Sirhan. But we're letting everybody know that the life of a presidential model carries a lot of risk. It carries a lot of risk.
Wow.
Yeah, I was at the Ambassador Hotel when he was killed. I don't have a lot of memory there and what it was going on there, but I know I was there, and that was the bus. That's where we were going.
Well, that was the only time I ever worked with Miesha. That's how I knew I've been trying to help Miesha recover her memories.
He has. Very helpful.
Yeah, I work mostly with Kathy O'Brien and several other Arizona Wilder, other presidential models. But I can at least say I did one mission with Miesha, so I know she's for real. Is any other questions that you need, Jessica, or
I'm gonna
go. I don't think I have a lot of questions. I think you've answered all of them. Any question I had, either you or Miesha answered them tonight, and I am forever grateful for both of y'all for being here tonight. Miesha, thank you so much.
Thank you
for being here,
Jessica.
I've learned a lot from you tonight.
Come back, in a little lesser violent way. Just to tell you more about the whole thing about Mount Monarch and my experiences with it. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. But just this kind of stuff really bothers me a lot. Sorry.
I want to say a few things here.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people paint Captain Joseph Mengele as a monster. That's not who he was. He knew the truth about the royal family being reptilians. Okay.
Ooh.
And me and Jessica did an X-File on vampires.
We did.
Yeah. So, but I want to say one thing about Captain Joseph Mengele tonight, because I learned a lot from him. Captain Joseph Mengele, can you imagine, had he not come forward with his diagram, there will still be people bleeding to death on operating tables to this day. Okay. And if you go to have, cataract surgery, they'll tell you that the first laser surgery was done by a Russian doctor in 1974. Well, I got news for you, Jessica and Miesha. Captain Joseph Mengele beat him by 1 year.
Really?
So Captain Joseph Mengele invented the surgical laser, but he had to remain quiet. So we beat the Russians not once but twice. We beat them with the hand laser in the operating rooms. We also beat them with the laser that is now mounted on a Navy warship. That's what I did, was help. Well, I worked on it, and like I said, it took it took over 25 years to develop the laser. Okay, but like I said, Lena Motenhouse, she didn't understand it, but that's what we were doing. And I want to say something else now. I keep hearing, I'm going to tell you what the word spook means. When the men in black, a lot of the men in black dated or slept with presidential models. And they have, when you're sleeping with your presidential model, you get up for sunrise. But the word spook came about because the presidential model would, and I know this for a fact, she turned her head to me and she said, "Don't spook the cattle." You believe this to this day, that anytime anybody works in intelligence, they call it a spook. So when CIA, when all their agents, their profiles were leaked, when I showed up at the CIA headquarters, the first thing they said, "Oh, those people from the Arco facility, look at them spooks." Well, that's how the word spook got introduced into intelligence, because you don't spook the cattle. I find it derogatory, but
Yeah,
that's what anybody calls people from the Arco facility, were spooks. And that took hold. And now if you work for any intelligence agency, particularly the CIA, they say, "Here comes a spook."
I've heard that before. I've definitely heard that.
Yeah.
Well, now, I mean, this is a lot to wrap everybody's heads around tonight, Jimmy, because you've disclosed to the entire world tonight that the cattle mutilations were not always ET UFO related. They were black ops related with the government.
Well, only about 24 cattle were taken during that era out of 10,000. Well, it was about 24 that 1 year. It usually averages around about two to 3 dozen per year. But the 10,000 cattle that were mutilated, that was us trying to learn how to use the lasers and train other surgeons, other doctors to be surgeons, to get it out to be mainstream. So now when you go and you have someone that's in an automobile accident, they're bleeding internally and they have to be opened up. The laser that Captain Joseph Mengele invented has saved many lives.
Wow.
I just have one thing to say. I had a friend who was the Loot U House here in Nevada, and he introduced me to. He didn't introduce me. I didn't get to meet, but he told me about his experience with the even called J-Rod that used to show how he would take in nourishment by like putting his finger in a glass of water or coffee or whatever it was, and his finger would take in the nourishment. So, yeah,
Wow.
there were a lot more, I'm sure, a lot more alien mutilations than there were cattle mutilations. There were even some human.
Well,
Yeah,
you
I was
have
going to ask you
you
about those too.
Mhm,
you
Yeah.
have to remember there's also reptilians
mhm,
and other species.
mhm,
Now, I can't really talk about the reptilians because I do know reptilians. They primarily take humans rather than animals.
mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
um, but now I'm saying all reptilians are bad. I'm saying
No.
certain types of
Mhm,
reptilians are bad. Okay,
mhm.
but but when you don't have any sex organs where you can't urinate or defecate, which the little grays are, the only way they can absorb is through their body. And they have to
Like
be,
sweat it out.
no, they have to they have to get in a bathtub. Well, actually there's showers. There's a special shower where the enzymes are squirted on them. They have to absorb their food
Yeah,
through their skin. Okay.
Whoa.
people saw
All
that.
right. Yeah.
Wow.
Uh, I
This
don't
is
know about
never heard this
I don't
before. This
I
is
don't know
wow.
about somebody sticking their finger in a glass. I never heard it, but then again, I wouldn't
Fingers.
rule it out
He was
because
just showing. He was showing his crew because he worked in um, a group with a group of military guys who were back engineering a flight simulator, a UFO flight simulator. And so they were just engineers and they were talking to him and telepathic. By the way, it's all telepathic. And there was a person there that could hear him telepathically. They were not able to talk. The only time, in fact, Bill would say that we talk to him and say, "Why won't you talk to us?" And he'd say, in their own voice, back to them, exactly like them, say, "Because I don't think you have anything interesting to say." Basically, what he said, very insulting. At that one point, he remembers, and then he did also say that during the time that the Evans were there, that and this was the Area 51, was that the strawberry ice cream was eaten a lot. They had a lot of strawberry ice cream.
Strawberry ice cream?
Yeah, so
They're
I
just
don't know.
bathing in the ice cream.
Maybe that's what he stuck his finger in. I don't know what it was. I can't remember right now what Bill said.
I would just take a bath in strawberry ice cream, I guess. That's the
Yeah.
best way to absorb it. Get that
I've had
sugar
a lot
high.
of whistleblowers talk to me about, and I saw the mutilation thing there. I've had several other whistleblowers communicate with me, and Bill being one of them. He's passed on, but yeah, that there was some military stories about military being mutilated, be in the wrong place at the wrong time. There's a horrific story. I don't know if I want to go into that one, but they were like hung up, kind of like you've seen in some of these awful movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was missing a couple of them. 3 of them went out. One came back, and when they went out to go for the other ones, I think it's how it was 3. They found them like hung and
Well, there was
type
that
of
case
thing.
of the Dyatlov Pass group, that group that was up in the Ural Mountains in Russia. And I think there were 9 Russian hikers found dead. And the
Mhm.
last 4 that they found were like 3 months after the other ones were found. And they had injuries that were the same as like being dropped from somewhere up high, like a car accident or something. And the woman's tongue was removed. They were mutilated.
Oh, they were mutilated because if the
They
tongue
were.
was removed, absolutely, yeah.
Oh
I
Interesting.
yeah.
know the alien that killed the group in there. I know the alien. He's
Personally?
an Atlant he's an Atlantean, the one that killed him in Russia.
Mm.
Did they get too close to an entrance to inner Earth, Jimmy? That's what I've always assumed. No.
What happened was the Atlantean that I was associated with, they had warned the Russians not to go in that area. And the Russians, now whether the hikers knew it, I think they did know it. I think they were testing the extraterrestrial. I don't think it was by accident that they hiked in there. I think they knew they did it on purpose. And the extraterrestrial had warned the Russians not to go in that area. And the Atlantean attacked and killed the hikers, the Russian hikers. And I'm aware of that extraterrestrial. And he is I'm aware of it. He is the same extraterrestrial that Lee Harvey Oswald encountered when a flying saucer got shot down over in Russia. You know, Lee Harvey Oswald was aware of that. The one that killed the one in the pass there.
Dyatlov. Jimmy, I have a quick question for you. Whenever I do a lot of presentations in the public, you know, I speak at a lot of events, and I've come across a petrified dragon potentially in Alabama. Okay, and I've connected the dots with the Russian soldiers that got turned to limestone back in the 1990s, I think, in the Ukraine. They shot down a UFO, and then 5 ETs came out of it. They formed into a ball of light, and it shot out an energy weapon, basically. And 23 of the 25 soldiers got turned to limestone, like Medusa. And that is actually in some declassified KGB documents and government U.S. documents. And I'm wondering, do you know anything about that? Do you? And is this the technology that has turned all these petrified titans and giants to stone? Do you think some kind of ET technology?
Well, there's some. I've seen some of the KGB films. You know, I'm more familiar with them opening up. You know, over in Egypt, when they opened up, they found see, underneath the Sphinx is a flying saucer underneath the pall. About 4,000 years ago, 2 flying saucers got into aerial combat, and one fell through time 4,000 years ago and landed in the Egyptian desert. The other one fell through time, and it fell in Mississippi, about 3 miles from my house. This used to be a swamp about 800 years ago. And then when I was about 8 years old, I found it. And the Air Force, you know, took a winch truck and winched it out of the creek bed. But I'm more familiar with the Russians being over in Egypt. I have films of them finding an alien inside the the pyramid and removing it. I have actual films of that.
UFO? Alien?
I'm sorry, what'd you say? You echoed.
Did you say UFO or alien? Or both?
Yeah, the Russians removed an extraterrestrial back in 1959. They removed it. I'm more familiar with that now. This is about the Ukraine. Did you say Ukraine, Jessica? Was it?
Yes,
Ukraine?
they were Russian soldiers, but they were in the Ukraine. Yes.
Well, the Russians used to have, now James Rink, before about a year or two before he died, he called me one night and he was asking me some questions. But back when John F. Kennedy was alive, the Russians had an underground base in Ukraine. And they had a missile in it. But I think that base has been reactivated, underground base. I know where it's at, but I can't give the information out because it's classified. And not that I'm trying to protect the Russians. It's just that I'm not allowed to go that far into that. But I would think the part about being turned into stone, I kind of find it hard to believe. That sounds like Russian propaganda, and they're great at propaganda. There's possibility that they might have been turned into some type of mummy, if you dry the body out.
Yeah.
Over time, the minerals in the body could crystallize. But I wouldn't think they were stone. Human flesh just does not turn stone. Now, wood,
it said limestone.
Well, wood can be petrified, but you have to remember minerals leach into the wood. I just don't think the human body would hold together that long. It would fall apart because, like we're not tough as wood,
I'm tough as nails.
I believe they were more like mummies, dried out mummies, maybe.
Well, we'll have to look into this some more in the future.
You said you found. You said you found.
I got the documents. Yes,
I'll send them to you. A dragon. You found.
I have a dragon. Well, I was shown a dragon. I went on I'm a cryptid field researcher. I went to go on a dogman investigation in Alabama, in the woods, and a gentleman came walking out of the woods on a trail holding a stone. He told me it was part of the wing of a dragon, and that he had been going out there for a long time. While his wife would walk the trails out there, he would go clean off his dragon, and he had a brush in his hand. And he said, if you go down this trail, you're going to walk right over its wing. And he walked us over to it, and we were actually going to backpack. We were hiking in to spend the weekend 5 miles into the woods to look for dogman. And so we walked over, and we could see it really well coming back. But when we were going in, we could see it. It took up. It was the whole hillside was a dragon. It looked like a dragon. Wow. A petrified dragon.
I would have to look at it.
I'll take you there, Jimmy.
Yeah, I would have to look at it.
I'll take y'all hiking in Alabama anytime y'all want. I'll send you some pictures. How about that? That'd probably be better.
I'll take the picture.
Right?
I would have a tendency to think you found a fossil of some sort. Mississippi. At least a third of Mississippi used to be underneath the water, and a third of Alabama and Georgia.
Georgia too. Georgia was all underwater. My mom and her brothers they lived up in North Georgia in the mountains, and they would go find little seashell fossils and stuff when they were kids. She had all sorts of little things or you could tell it was the ocean. They were under the sea, basically up there in the North Georgia mountains at some point.
Well, if you go like the port of Mobile, Alabama, if you go out about 20 miles out into the ocean, there's about 60 feet down. There was a hurricane a couple of years back and stirred all the sediment up, and they found a forest 20 miles out from the coast. 60 feet down, they found a petrified, where trees used to grow, a forest underneath the ocean there. So the sea level used to not be this high. You know, the polar ice caps have been melting for a long time. That's
Yeah.
why the water keeps rising up. So it might have been you found some type of fossil, but I would like to look at those pictures. We can get off one night. Me and you just
Yeah.
get together and
We'll do
we
a deep
look
dive.
at it. Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to bid you tonight good night because I have to go get some dinner. Very, very
Thank
hungry.
you. Thank you, Miesha, for being here. Miesha, where can you tell the audience quickly before you go? Tell them where they can find you.
Okay, it's Miesha Johnston with a T. However, on Facebook, I am Miesha Johnson. Like she has it yeah, you have it JOHNSON. But on my Facebook, it's Johnston. So don't be confused there. But Facebook, I have my page. I have 3 groups that I've posted in here. An MK Ultra Secret Space Program group. I've got an Starseed Awakening ET Experiencer groups, and then the Starseed Awakening support groups as well. Those are all groups that you can join on Facebook and find me there. And like I said, if you look back here, you'll see every time I try to put a website in, it won't let me. So I don't know how come that's that way, but it won't. So it's starseedawakening.org. And if you need to call me, not call me, email me. It is Star Miesha, and that's Star MIESHA 99 at yahoo.com. I'm sorry, I'm not going to make that Yahoo. I'm going to make that Gmail, my Gmail account, so I can watch out. And if you say that you saw me on here, I will give you $50 off on a hypnosis session.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miesha. That is so sweet. I've got starmiesha99@gmail.com, right?
That's right. That's my email. And then starseedawakening.org. Make sure it's org, not
.org.
.com.org.
We have it in the description box below the video, y'all. So y'all can go, and it's also on the ticker down here. So
thank you so much.
Thank you, Miesha.
It was really great to have being here. Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you, Jesse. Take care.
Well, thank you.
Bye.
We'll see you next time.
Okay. Soon, Jimmy. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Miesha.
Let's see. How do I leave?
Here, I'll take her down. There we go. Miesha's so sweet. I love her. All right, Jimmy, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking on you.
Well, like I said, this is just soft disclosure tonight. I'm glad I really do not want to cover this, but because it had so much information in it, and I'm just kind of pointing out, what it's like to be an MIB. And we were, like I said, trying to make people aware of what a presidential model is. And that, you don't always have to go look for a Bigfoot or a dragon or a werewolf. Sometimes people can be a monster. And Leatherface was a monster. The Slaughter family was a monster.
I found this quote today, Jimmy. I loved it, from William Shakespeare. I think it's from The Tempest. And he says, "Hell is empty and all the devils are here." And I thought that pertained to tonight's show.
I think you're very, very well, versed in that.
Oh yeah. And I hunt monsters for fun. I'm a monster hunter. And the real monsters are humans. I'm just saying.
Well, there's lots of monsters, particularly with the Epson files and everything.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
But is any other questions from the audience before we sign off tonight? Is anybody?
Yes, we do have a couple of questions that I did put stars on. Let me see. Because let's see, somebody was asking about, and I wanted to thank everybody for these super stickers too. Y'all are so sweet. I'll thank y'all after the show. Thank you, Nathan. I see yours too, and Leisha. And okay, Tareen was asking. I hope I got your name right, Jimmy. What is an Atlantean? And also, hold on before you answer it. Would you explain what an Atlantean is? What do they look like, and what is their agenda?
Well, the first time I met an Atlantean was about 4 months before the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. I was abducted. An Atlantean is a very deformed human.
Oh.
They can't stand on their legs are so weak they can't stand up, and their legs are about maybe 5 feet, 6 feet long, just the legs. And their arms are about 4 or 5 feet long. They're unusually long arms and long legs. And you can either have a 3-finger Atlantean or a 6-finger Atlantean. I'm more familiar with the 3-finger Atlantean. And they're a Caucasian. And they wear anti-gravity belts to move around because they've lost their ability to stand. And when you hear the word Atlantean, that's just what they are. They come from the island of Atlantis. Now, in the Pacific Ocean, a continent sunk, and that is where they're from. They're probably about, I would say, about 1,500 miles or more from the Peru coast out in the ocean is where the island used to be a volcano out in the ocean. And Earth was hit by some type of a weapon about 10,000 years ago, and it made the ice caps melt, and it caused a lot of flooding. But I've been on that island. It rose briefly for about a year and a half, 2 years back in the 60s, and then it went back down. See, the lava, made it expand up, and then the lava, settled back into the earth, and it disappeared into the ocean. And there is a power source there on the island, and statues and everything. But Atlanteans are humanoid. They're humanoids, okay? And they're not to be tinkered with, okay? They're very short-tempered, and they have weapons that much more powerful than any nuclear weapon. Nuclear weapons would be no match to their weapons. Okay, that's what Atlantean is. Is there any more questions?
We do have more questions.
How old are they? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. They're all cloned. They all look alike. They come to Earth to get eggs and sperm. They're trying to build their bodies back up strong. Now, the one that landed in Mississippi that I found the craft was about 3 miles from my home. That's how I know about Atlanteans. And the Atlantean was fighting a reptilian, and that reptilian fell through time, and it fell in Egypt. And that's Osiris, the god Osiris. And that was what was in the temple that the Russians found, the underground temple.
Oh my gosh. I think that my guest on yesterday, Mr. William Nighthawk, had I think maybe he had put Osiris in that category of maybe reptilian. So interesting. Okay. I had to go back
I
and
have
watch.
pictures. I have
Okay.
pictures of Osiris, his mummy.
Really?
Yeah,
Reptilian?
classified. Yeah, it's Russian soldiers handling Osiris. And when the tomb was open, the gases in the tomb overcame a Russian soldier and he collapsed. And all the researchers that were researching that were in that tomb have disappeared. They were abducted. They were called the Watchers. Inside that tomb was a silent alarm. And when the Russians opened the tomb up, it sent a silent alarm off. And they were 2 busloads of scientists disappeared. They were taken above into the spacecraft and never been seen since.
Uh-oh. That sucks. Oh man. Well, wait, I have another question. Okay.
About the 6 toes.
Oh, the 6 toes. Yes. Let's answer.
No,
do
they have
6
3 toes. They have 3 toes.
3
Now
toes,
there is a 6-finger Atlantean, but I'm more familiar with the 3-toed Atlantean.
Jimmy, I'm just glad that somebody else says fingers. Okay, because I say fingers.
It's our Southern accent.
Y'all, I know y'all love our Southern accents. We're over here eating Vienna sausages and talking about our fingers. Okay. All right. We got another question about the moon, Jimmy. Nathan, thank you for those 2 super stickers tonight. We are pushing the envelope, depending upon how you say it. Nathan wants to know what's on the moon. What weapons platform might be there?
Well, I've been on the moon, and I have met tall grays on the moon. They're I wouldn't say they're, well, if you watch Apollo, not Apollo, I'm trying to think of the movie here. Apollo 18. If you go, I think it's on YouTube. If it's not, you can watch it on Prime about Apollo 18. That's a very true movie. There are tall grays on the moon. They're kind of tit for tat. They can be hostile sometimes, and other times they just don't want to have anything to do to us. They do occasionally talk to us, but it's very shaky. I have been in some of the glass domes. All the dome cities were cracked. Some type of event occurred on the moon, and we have a base on the moon underneath ground. Of course, you can't stay underneath the dome because of the radiation. I did a show I've done 2 shows on Super Soldiers Talk. If you go to supersoldierstalk.com, and once you log on to that website, you go down to the search box in Super Soldiers Talk and just type in Jimmy Paine, Paine, Jimmy Paine, and then about 30 podcasts will come up that I've done with James. See, there's over 430 videos there. You don't want to go through all 430. You want to go to the search on his website and just type my name in, and it brings up all 30 or so podcasts I did with James Rink. And I've got 2 podcasts in there on Apollo 20. You'll find a lot of interesting information. You'll find more in those 2 podcasts than you would do in a whole lifetime of searching on your own.
Major disclosure. Yeah. So
It's
James,
major
rest in
disclosure.
peace to James. Yes, James is a treasure for the disclosure in the disclosure community, and so those are wonderful videos that y'all made, Jimmy, and it's
Yeah,
much
I
appreciated. I'm glad y'all did those.
yeah I returned EB Mona Lisa back to Earth, and I have been in the spacecraft that William Rutledge filmed. You can go to YouTube and just type in EB Mona Lisa, or either type in Apollo 20, and you'll see the spacecraft in the crater. I've been inside
Mhm.
that spacecraft. Go ahead.
I know the crater exists or the spaceship exists because my team and I remote viewed it a long time ago for a practice target. And
Yeah,
and so we'll talk about that another time. We have
we
another
will.
question though too because let's see. Mike wants to know: Are you when you refer to the Watchers? Do you mean the fallen angels?
No, no. The Watchers were Russian scientists. They had gone into to the pyramid when they found the body of Osiris. And
Okay.
just like when you become, you when you realize when you come in contact with extraterrestrial, it shatters your religion.
Mm-hmm.
So it shattered the scientists there when they found out that Osiris, you know, was extraterrestrial. They had questions of, about life and religion. And when they worked on it for several years, and they decoded a message through one of the devices left in the tomb. And when they showed up in the desert one night, there was a UFO that came overhead, and they all got out and they looked up towards the UFO, and then there was a flash of light, and over 2 busloads of scientists disappeared, and
Mm.
they have not been seen since.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's really sad. But it's interesting. You got to wonder where they went. Guess they got taken off to another planet or what? It's wild. We do have let's see, we have another question from Max, Life, Love, and Learning. Thank you for being here, Max. Jimmy, who cut down all the ancient giant trees that are like Devil's Tower now out west? How long ago? Why did it really align with Noah in the Bible? It's another fallen angels question, basically, kind of. But who did that? Do you think those were giant trees that got cut down?
Well, I am of I have a dual religion. I was born Roman Catholic, but I take the spiritualness of Native American Paiutes. So I have a dual religion. I cannot tell you who cut down the giant trees, and I cannot tell you about the Bible. What I can tell you is that I did do a time jump at Camp Hero. Me and James Rink did a show on it, um, about the chronovisor, and I did enter Jesus's tomb, and I retrieved the Shroud of Turin. Um, we did do a podcast on that. I would refer you to go to Super Soldiers Talk and just type in Jimmy Paine in the search bar. That should pull it up. Or you can go to, better yet, go to YouTube and just type in Super Soldier Jimmy Paine. You better type in Super Soldier Jimmy Paine, because there's other Jimmy Paines that are not me. But if you type in Super Soldier Jimmy Paine, Paine, that should pull up the Chronovisor um, podcast, and we go into about Jesus, I did retrieve I retrieved the Shroud of Turin. I actually held Jesus's slipper, but Jesus took a very long step and he outstepped me. I couldn't catch up to him. He had already left the tomb when I got there. The stone had been rolled and Jesus took off.
Oh
Go
my
ahead.
gosh. Wow. Look, we have about 2 more questions and we're going to cut it off because I know it's getting late and I got to get my kid we got school tomorrow. Okay. I'm loving this though, Jimmy. Thank you for sticking around and answering questions from the audience. This is wonderful. Let's see. I have a couple more questions here. I put some, here we go. Well, first of all, Jimmy, when are you going to be back? What's our next topic? We're going to go over the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2? Or are we going to do the Titanic?
We're going to do one more, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the beginning.
Okay.
That'll be our next podcast about a month from now, if Jessica's slot is open.
Okay.
There
It'll
was
be good, no matter what it is.
There was a question up about something about an alien in the backyard. Could you pull that back up?
I was getting back up there. Yes, let's go to that one next. This is from Bounty Hunting Bear. Any info about the Vegas alien incident with the family's backyard?
Yes, I know about that, and I know about that the alien. His craft had overheated, and he had to land, and he was in the backyard. That was a tall white, and once his engine cooled a little bit, he was able to get it back up and go.
Wow. Good information, Jimmy. Thank you. Max is asking, Jimmy, is the Nautilus USA US military spaceship real? And have you been on it? The Nautilus USA military spaceship.
I'm
not familiar with that one.
Well, let me, I'm trying to answer it here.
Okay.
Now, Captain Oscar Snyder, that's Phil Snyder's daddy. Phil Snyder was a geologist. Now, Captain Oscar Snyder, he was part of Project Paperclip, but the Nautilus used to be a submarine. It was an experimental submarine built in 1958. As far as the military spaceship, I would have to think that most likely it probably is a some type of classified, craft. I would have to go back down to Area 51 and check into it. But if it is classified, I would not be able to tell you. I would just have to look at it. So I cannot answer the question. Is it a spacecraft? I cannot answer that at this time. Go ahead.
All right, next question. What exactly, this is from Sovereign Cosmic Wildman, what exactly was the Sphinx before? What kind of head did it have? Maybe an Anubis type head?
Well, the history, the chamber of knowledge is beneath the pall. It's basically a flying saucer that's in the sand there. Now, 2 days after President Obama, when President Obama took office, within 48 hours of President Obama taking the office of the president, he flew to Egypt and he went to the Sphinx. I do know that. Now, as far as the Sphinx itself, if you go into the pyramids of Egypt, you see all types of creatures on the walls, humans with dog heads, or humans with, the head of a bird, Those are genetic experiments. And I would think the Sphinx is just some type of,
chimera
statue. Yeah, it's a statue of a creature that has probably been long dead. That's all I can tell you there.
Okay, we got one last. This is our last question. Okay, let's see. Hold on, let me go find it. From Max, asking Jimmy, did they resuscitate Mona Lisa from the moon? Meaning, were they able to bring her back to life? What happened to her? Do you know?
Well, if you go into, like I said, you go Super Soldiers Talk, and you type in Jimmy Paine, that's going to pull up the Apollo 20 podcast. But I've been, when I was 6 years old, I used to remote view channel. And I channeled I channeled a spirit, but it turned out to be an extraterrestrial. And when I was a little boy in school, the reason I named her Mona Lisa was because there was a picture on the wall of a painting, a famous painting. And so I named her Mona Lisa. See, Mona Lisa, we don't have her alphabet. So we can't pronounce her name. See, so she's got, her alphabet has about 17, maybe 19 more letters in her alphabet than we have in our alphabet. So we can't pronounce her name. So I just named her Mona Lisa. And when I found her, I was picked for the Apollo 20 mission. And when I went to the moon, I landed in a separate craft from William and Rutledge, that is. And when I found Mona, she woke up on me on the way back to Earth, and she crawled into my lap and looked me dead in the eye, and that's the last thing I remember. It's very unusual for me to have a missing time. It's only happened to me twice in my life, and it happened both times when I was on the moon.
Wow.
Now, as far as her being resuscitated, she goes back to sleep when she doesn't have enough oxygen. She's not dead and she's not alive. She's kind of in a coma. And I can communicate with Mona, but I have to be close to her where I can put my hand on her temple. You ever seen a Vulcan? How they split their fingers and they put it up to your temple?
Well, I didn't watch Star Trek very much, but I know what you're talking about.
That's how I can communicate with Mona, because I knew Spock when I grew up. I did command the Enterprise for a while. I'm Jim. But you would, like I said, I had to refer you back to you can get some of it on YouTube. I have a good many on YouTube, but the most complete set of podcasts you'll find is on Super Soldiers Talk. But you can go to YouTube and, like I said, just type in Super Soldier Jimmy Paine, and that'll pull up most all of them. Won't pull all of them up, but it'll pull up most of them. I think you'll find what you're looking for on YouTube. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to put this in Super Soldier Jimmy. Hold on, I'm going to type in
Talk.com.
Jimmy Paine. Oh, yeah. All right. Go to supersoldiertalk.com or just Super Soldier Talk on YouTube, y'all. And of course, Jimmy, you and James and I also did shows here on my channel too. We did the undead, like the zombies, and we did we've done several shows. I can't remember. The vampire one was a big one. We did a 2-part vampire series. We did 2 different shows on vampires as well. So
we did also some Star Trek. I did a lot of Star Treks with you. I never did do my last Star Trek because what happened was I was being harassed. James had an open platform on Super Soldiers Talk. And I can say one thing, the vast majority of the people who were part of Super Soldiers Talk treated me very well. But I had about a dozen or so people that came in from other websites that abused it. And they would get on there and just cuss me out. And those people came over from another website, and they weren't very stable. See, when you're running a Healing Soul Survivors, you're dealing with people who have been traumatized, fractured, and whatever. And they apparently they mixed in, and I never was able to. I had to stop doing the Star Trek because of it. But maybe one day I'll start back. But for now, I had to stop. Go ahead.
Yeah, we can do it. We can do it over on my channel sometime, Jimmy. We have wonderful moderators over here. See, I don't think James had a bunch of moderators on his channel. I've got the best moderators in the business over here on my channel, and we will zap the trolls before they can get to us. Okay.
Well,
so I think we'd be safe over here. Hopefully.
Well, like I said, I've been met very well by almost everybody on the internet. But like I said, when you're dealing with somebody who has mental illness, and particularly when you have somebody, dealing with Star Trek, you get I was very surprised that people just really took it real hard on the Star Trek. But then again, Hollywood glamorized it, and like I said, it just got a little out of hand with the people coming in from other parts of the internet. There, go ahead.
They come from the shadows.
Yeah, you're gonna have people.
You have a YouTube channel.
You're gonna have people that'll criticize you because you look for Bigfoot and werewolves, and until you date a werewolf, you just don't really know, folks. I mean, and they, like I said, they can have some bushy tails.
Listen, Jimmy, if I really, I've got some tough skin, Jimmy, because I've had to have tough skin doing this. And I do it. I just have so much fun. It's okay. I understand. Listen, I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. Neither are you. We're okay with that, right? We're not for everybody. And this information that we're putting out is for the people that are ready to hear it, and the ones that aren't ready to hear it, they'll be ready one day. Okay. But for right now, I am so blessed to have you here, Jimmy. Thank you so much for being here and spending this evening with us over here on my channel, and talking about the Texas slaughter family. My goodness, it's been a wonderful show tonight. So I can't wait for you to come back.
Well, they can either find out about disclosure here, or they can find about disclosure when over in England with the royal family. You can go do either way, but you'll be more prepared over here rather than seeing a king or a queen shapeshift in front of you.
Man, oh man, I've seen some shape shifting on TV before, but that would be something in person. I tell you what, I don't know. Jimmy, do you think that we'll ever see that publicly? Like, I know we got all this. We've had like a disclosure dump this week. Like a lot of disclosures happened from some of the darker sides of humanity, right? Do you think that they'll ever parade out a Bigfoot on stage and show everybody a Bigfoot or a werewolf, or even, I mean, I don't know, just anything like that? Do you think that'll ever happen in our lifetimes?
No, but I can pick out what is real and what is not real over the internet. And there is shape-shifting on the internet. There are werewolves on the internet and Bigfoots, but I have to pick it out. It's out there. I can pick it. I know where several films are right now. I can pick out. But
send them to me.
But like I said, we want to go ahead and close up Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the beginning, and then after we get that done, we'll talk about what else we want to put out there. I would like to put out a video of the HAL 9000, the boot up. If you're interested, I can get that to you. I just like to let it play on your website. And I won't do the movie unless I have enough comments behind it. If you want to do that, it had to be if we have enough comments on the startup of the HAL 9000. That would be an interesting one. Because HAL 9000, I do know how to operate it.
What is HAL 9000? What is that?
You ever watch Space Odyssey 2000,
No.
2000 or 2010 by Stanley Kubrick?
No, but I will. Okay.
Well, HAL 9000 is a supercomputer. It is on a spacecraft that's orbiting Jupiter,
Oh, that would be a good one. Okay. We have a question too, asking where can people find the Texas Slaughter family movie? What I'm going to do after the show tonight, I will put the links to both of those, or you can find them on YouTube. They've got ads, unless you've got YouTube Premium or whatever that is. But I can put the links to those in the comments after the show tonight. Okay, I'll do that for you guys. And yeah, nighty night, sweet dreams, everybody. If you watch those, but yeah, man, Jimmy, I can't wait. I get questions all the time. People hit me up all the time asking when you're coming back on my show. And so we'll start making this a once a month thing. Okay, we'll plan on it if you're available, because I love this.
We'll do it about this time next month. I'll get back with you. We'll have we'll do the true ending. What really happened to Leatherface, and the true ending to Leatherface, how he was, taken out, and that way people will understand that. Don't go out and buy the complete set of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's not but 3 movies that are correct, and the rest of them are just made up by writers. Like I said, you get a classified file that's been blacked out, and they hire writers to fill in the blank spaces, but the early writers were not remote viewers, so they just made up stories. Now they take remote viewers to fill in the blackout spots, was redacted. But now we're getting to the point where we're going with AI. They, pretty soon they won't have a reason for a writer at all.
Dang, I was about to ask, are they hiring? Because I'm a remote viewer. So they're paying good.
Well, they make very good money. The remote viewers do, Steven Spielberg.
Mm-hmm.
If you take just a writer off the street and you take a remote viewer off the street, they'll pay that remote viewer. They'll probably pay a remote viewer up a couple of $1 million and just pay a writer a few thousand if they get that much. Yeah. Remote viewers are the ones that makes the money, not the writers anymore.
Man, I'm looking for a side hustle right now. That'd be perfect. I'll tell you what.
Well, Steven Spielberg hires remote viewers. They've gotten rid of just the writers. The Star Trek writers just went too wild on it, and they tased them all and ran them off. And now the industry is going with the remote viewers, but I don't think remote viewers are going to be much, like I said, because they're going to AI to write the black ink spots.
Dang it, AI's taking over everything. That sucks.
Well, for now it is.
There goes my $2 million I could have made being a remote viewer on a film. Dang it.
Much more than $2 million.
Dang it.
You're too low, Jessica. You really need to get into doing the movies. Yeah. You make more money working with Steven Spielberg than you would here.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it. We're going to talk about this, y'all. Yeah. Don't worry. I'll keep my podcast, y'all. Don't worry. Just kidding.
Now, if anybody needs to get a hold of me, I don't do one-on-one sessions. I am looking for a corporate sponsor. I'm not affiliated with Jessica. I'm not affiliated with Healing Soul Survivors. I don't want any money from you. I'm looking for a sponsor. Somebody's got deep pockets. I don't care what agency you're from, what three-letter agency. Your secrets are, safe with me. I know about the Chinese and the Russians, and I'm also very aware of the reptilians. So, if you need to get a hold of me, just get a hold of Jessica. Jessica, let me know, and I'll talk with them.
I think that's a great idea. Somebody just said we should do a show on the royal families and the reptilians and stuff. I think that'd be a fun show to do, actually. So, I don't know. We got to be careful, y'all. I know we're doing some full disclosure here, but I'll talk to Jimmy about it. Okay. All right. And yes, Jimmy, thank you so much once again for being here tonight. This is gonna tie for my longest show I've ever done on my channel. Over 3 hours. So this is wonderful. This is full disclosure, y'all. You guys want disclosure? We're bringing it. Okay. And so Jimmy, thank you so much again for being here tonight. And I want to thank everybody I want to thank everybody for being here, all my moderators. And I definitely wanted to give a thank you to everybody who gave super stickers tonight as well. War Criminal, that's funny. He loves tumor meat, y'all. We're Criminal. Matt, thank you for being here. He gave a super sticker. Y'all, I'm so sorry. The tumor meat thing was kind of gross, y'all. I know. But just be careful what you're eating because you don't know what's in those burgers, okay? Jojo, thank you for that super sticker. Nathan Davis, thank you for both of those. Steve Wolf, thank you for that. I will check my PayPal after the show tonight. And let's see. Leisha Fox, thank you so much for the super sticker. And, of course, Nathan for that second one. I appreciate that. Okay. Well, Jimmy, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
I enjoyed tonight, and I do read what's wrote in chat. And so whatever you wrote tonight in the chat, I will read it. It's just going to take me a little time, but I have a next day or two, and I will read all your questions. So if your question was not answered tonight, I'm not trying to, put you off. It's just that we had so much going on, I just didn't get to it. But I do read your questions. And thank you so much for having me on tonight. And I thank the people that, in the audience that logged on. And I'll see you this time next month.
Yeah, we're going to have you back, Jimmy. Thank you so much. You stay safe out there, Jimmy. And I want to tell everybody to please, like Jane says here, Good night, everyone. Keep your vibrations high and have no fear. Live in awareness. Come back and see me on Saturday night. I'll be here 10 p.m. Eastern as we go on the hunt with another fantastic show. And yeah, thanks for sticking with us for all these 3 hours and 5 minutes almost. Stay safe out there, y'all. And sweet dreams. Sweet dreams, Jimmy. We'll see you on the next one. If I can find my buttons. All right. Bye, y'all.